It was a sunny day full of excitement, and Nicole and her 8-year-old daughter Melina were at the airport. They were anxiously waiting to board the flight that would take them to Orlando, their long-awaited vacation destination. Dressed in colorful and comfortable clothes, they were both ready for the adventure that awaited them. "I'm such an excited mama," the little girl exclaimed, her eyes shining with excitement. Nicole smiled and replied, "Me too, honey. We will take lots of pictures and have a lot of fun at the games." As they walked through the airport lounge, Nicole held her daughter's hand and she jumped for joy. They stopped at a gift shop and bought Disney stickers to decorate their suitcases. The atmosphere at the airport was lively, with a group of musicians playing. Melina excitedly began to dance, attracting the attention of the other passengers, who smiled and applauded the proud girl's performance. Her mother recorded the scene and shared it with friends and family on her mobile phone. When it was time to check out, Melina helped her mom put her bags on the conveyor belt and received a special sticker from the employee. "Look, Mom, they gave me a Bon Voyage sticker," said the excited girl. "Now we will put it in your passport to make it even more beautiful," her mom answered excitedly. After going through security, they found a small playground at the airport and decided to make the most of the time. Before boarding, Melina played on the slide, swing and bounce house, hanging out with other kids who were also excited about the trip. When the flight was announced, mother and daughter went to the boarding gate, and while they waited in line, Nicole showed them the plane through the window. He explained to them that he would fly high into the sky, crossing the clouds. When they got on the plane, they were greeted by a friendly flight attendant and settled into their seats. Melina was thrilled with the experience and was looking around from the window, watching the airport go by as the plane prepared to take off. The pilot made an announcement over the MSN system, informing the passengers of the weather and flight conditions, while Melina tried to make sense of everything. Nicole helped her fasten her seat belt. "There you go, honey. Now we're safe and ready to fly," Mom said, adjusting her own seat belt. The plane began to move slowly down the runway, and Melina watched every detail in amazement, marveling at the size and power of the aircraft. "How can the plane fly?" Melina asked. The woman explained simply, with the wings and engines moving fast enough to take off. As the plane accelerated and began to climb, Melina felt a twinge in her stomach and laughed as she looked down. Seeing the houses and buildings getting smaller and smaller when they reached a certain height, the pilots turned on the lights and the passengers began to prepare for the journey. Nicole had brought paper and colored pencils to keep her daughter entertained during the flight. The little girl, still amazed by everything, was drawing a small plane while the flight attendant walked by and served snacks and drinks. They were both excited about the trip, as it would be Melina's first time going to Disney. Nicole had saved up her money a long time ago to give her daughter this unique and magical experience. She knew this trip would be a time of joy and renewal for both of them. Especially after the difficult period of Melina and her father's recent separation. All this was very difficult, especially for the girl who missed her father's constant presence in her life. Her mother, for her part, was going through a period of adjustment and trying to balance work, raising her daughter, and managing her own emotions. This trip was a great opportunity for them to have fun and leave the past behind. Nicole went to great lengths to keep Melina's routine as normal as possible, creating special and fun moments to compensate for her father's absence. In addition, she tried to maintain a friendly relationship with her ex-husband so that the girl could still have a healthy relationship with her father. However, the differences between them were still frequent and the sensitive girl ended up realizing it and suffering. "I promise that when we come back from this trip, we will continue to work on improving our lives and our relationship," Nicole said, hugging her daughter. "I know, Mom," Melina replied, returning the hug. This trip to Disney was a way for Nicole to show her love and devotion to Melina. Nicole wanted the girl to experience a magical and unforgettable moment, something that would help her forget her difficulties and feel loved and protected. Nicole kept thinking about how she would have a good time with her daughter and the many photos they would take on the trip. However, he didn't even realize that their lives would be in danger within hours. The flight to Orlando would take about 8 hours and everything looked good. They were both sitting comfortably in their seats, enjoying the flight and looking forward to reaching their destination. However, about 4 hours into the flight, a storm formed on the horizon and the plane began to experience turbulence, losing contact with the control tower. The plane was compromised by the extreme weather conditions and the pilot had to make quick decisions to ensure the safety of the passengers. Very scared, Melina started to squeeze her mother's hand, saying that she was very scared. Nicole tried to calm her down by saying that everything was going to be okay and that it was normal for her to experience turmoil. However, her own heart was tightening and beating fast in an effort to get out of the storm and re-establish communication with the control tower. The pilot decided to raise the altitude of the plane. However, he did not expect lightning to strike the aircraft. As they ascended, the impact was so strong that all the plane's lighting systems were affected. After a brief silence, the oxygen masks fell into the cabin and the plane began to shake violently. Passengers screamed as flight attendants tried to calm them down. "We are going to die," the terrified people shouted. "Please calm down, stay seated and put on your masks immediately," a flight attendant said. "Take a deep breath, kid. Let's get the oxygen masks on and everything will be fine," Nicole said as she took off her mask. The next few minutes were full of terror and despair. Without communication with the control tower and with the plane's systems down, the pilot and crew struggled to regain control of the aircraft. The stern-voiced captains tried to keep the passengers calm, while the flight attendants rushed to help the passengers put on their seat belts. Passengers wept and prayed, hugging each other for comfort. A desperate woman shouted, "Oh my God! The plane is going to crash." Someone else shouted, "We're going to die." Melina was holding her mother's hand and trying to hold back tears, trying to understand what was happening. Nicole did her best to stay calm and protect her daughter, even though she knew the situation was critical. Then the worst happened. The plane began to lose altitude rapidly and panic gripped all on board. The pilot announced that he was doing everything he could to regain control and asked everyone to prepare for the worst. "I love you, Melina. Whatever happens, we will be together," said the mother, hugging the girl tightly. The co-pilot was trying to re-establish communication with the control tower while the pilot was concentrating on keeping the aircraft as stable as possible. "We're losing altitude and can't regain control," the co-pilot called out in a trembling voice. Meanwhile, the flight attendants remained in their seats and spoke loudly to calm the passengers. Some panicked, screaming and begging God. Despite the chaos, the cabin crew remained professional, trying to convey a kind of calmness to the passengers. Nicole closed her eyes and began to pray fervently in hopes that they would get out of this situation. The tension, fear and desperation were palpable at that moment. "We have to do something now," the pilot exclaimed in a cold sweat. "I'll pull the rudder." And after keeping the direction of the aircraft steady, the pilots managed to stabilize it in the air for a while. They looked relieved, but they still had to find out what was going on with the aircraft systems. "We were able to stabilize the aircraft, but we still need help," the pilot said as he tried to contact the control tower. The fear was evident on the faces of the passengers, who were all in a state of shock, disbelief and terror. The prayers, hugs and words of comfort continued as they tried to come to terms with the terrible experience they were going through. The pilot struggled to maintain the plane's altitude, knowing that if they could not fully restore the electrical system it would crash. While they were discussing the problem, a light began to flash on the cockpit display, indicating a possible problem with the wires connecting the electrical system. The co-pilot, who had technical knowledge of the matter, suggested reconnecting the cables in the maintenance compartment to try to regain control of the airplane. The pilot agreed, but knew that access to this compartment was only external. However, he remembered a small opening inside the plane, through which only a small child could fit. This was impossible for adults, but maybe a child could do it. After a chat, they decided to act quickly. The pilot started asking the passengers if there were any small children on the plane and explained the approximate situation. Nicole raised her hand pointing to her daughter Melina. "My daughter is young, maybe she can help," he said. The flight attendant approached them and explained that the girl was their only hope and that they needed her to reconnect the cables in the maintenance compartment to regain control. "I know it's scary for a plane, but you're our only hope," the flight attendant said, looking the girl in the eyes. Melina hesitated for a moment, but her mom encouraged her by telling her, "You are the bravest person I know. I believe in you." The girl's eyes filled with tears, but she felt great determination and understood the importance of her mission. The flight attendant led Melina to the opening inside the plane, which gave access to the maintenance compartment for the electrical cables that needed to be reconnected in a certain order. At this point everyone was supporting Melina as she prepared to enter the apartment. Nicole hugged her tightly before letting her go. And despite her fear, Melina entered the dark apartment. The space was extremely narrow, making breathing difficult. Aided by a small flashlight provided by the flight attendant, Melina began crawling through the narrow space toward the loose cables. Meanwhile, the passengers joined in with prayers and words of encouragement, knowing that everyone's lives depended on it. Holding the radio, the co-pilot guided Melina and gave her some encouraging instructions, making them as simple as possible. With trembling hands she took the cables and began to connect them to the points indicated by the co-pilot. The chamber was full of cables and equipment, which left her scared and anxious about the complexity of the undertaking. Meanwhile, the passengers, flight attendants and Melina's mom waited anxiously outside. Devastated, Nicole spoke words of encouragement and prayed for her daughter. The co-pilot continued to speak slowly, explaining every detail. "Now you have to connect the little red wire to the little red box in front of you," he said. Despite the fear and tension, Melina was determined to save everyone on board as silence hung in the air. Time seemed to pass excruciatingly fast and the tension grew with each passing second. Finally it was time to connect the last green wire. Everyone had their eyes fixed on the cabin and the silence became deafening. "You're almost there. Now put the green wire in the little green box and everything will be fine," the co-pilot said hopefully. Melina, her hands sweaty and her heart pounding, connected the last wire that turned on the cabin lights. All the plane's systems activated and a sigh of relief and shouts of joy filled the air. Especially those of Nicole, who couldn't stop crying. As the girl left the ward, her mother hugged her praising her excellent performance and everyone praised her attitude. "You did it, Melina. You saved us," the stewardess said with tears in her eyes. Everyone clapped and celebrated the girl's success. When the plane finally landed, the pilot and co-pilot approached Melina to praise her for her courage. As a reward for her bravery, the airline presented Melina with a medal and free plane tickets for a year. They then set off on their long-awaited trip to Disneyland, where they created unforgettable memories and had more fun than ever. Melina's bravery and determination should be remembered as an act that inspires and encourages all to carry on. No matter how big or small we are all capable of achieving great things.